Welcome, one and all, to another episode of WoT Talk. And we have two special things at the beginning here. First off, an apology. I've missed multiple weeks in a row because I was sick, and then it was the holidays. I thought I could record one over the holidays, but with how many people were in the house I was staying in, that was just 100% not going to happen. But I'm back. I'm back at it. We're going to be doing another WoT Talk here. And the second thing here is a WoT Talk exclusive, because you guys, you're like the most frequent fans. I feel like the WoT Talk people, they're the people I recognize the most often. Not 100%, but a lot of it. So I feel like, it's okay to tell you guys this, that I'm getting a new little member of the Daniel family here. There's going to be a cat introduced to the house. I know I had to choose between a cat and a dog. I talked about this before. I chose cat just because I'm not home enough to take proper care of a dog. And with cats, you can leave them and they don't really care. They have their litter box. They're fine. So I have chosen to go ahead and adopt a cat. I will take amazing care of it. I promise that. And it will be a part of the family. And there's going to be a pre-spoiler WoT Talk question for you guys. Spoiler free. What should I name the cat? Obviously, it needs to be Wheel of Time related. And I'm gonna go ahead and see whatever's the top voted name on one of the two comments I'm leaving on this video. That will be heavily considered. I will not go as far as to say it will for sure be the cat's name. I'm no fool. All right, I know that can lead to some bad Bodie McBoatface stuff. I'm not naming my cat Padon Fane or Pedro Nile, but it's a male cat. The shelter currently has him named Macho. I hate that name. Orange and white. Beautiful, kind of like a nice opacity to his fur. It looks interesting. I'll send pictures as soon as possible. I'm picking him up Wednesday after he gets all of his shots and everything. It'll be great. And I will be sure to put photos on Instagram and all that. So if you're not following me on Instagram, as always, links in the description. And I'm sure he'll be featured in a couple of videos in the future after I pick him up. But going into a little bit of spoiler-free stuff, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this on WoT Talk before. Please follow the Wheel of Time writers and everything that are opening up to the community so graciously on Twitter. We have the Wheel of Time Writers Room, Rafe Judkins, Sarah, and a few other team members that have been announced. They all seem like they care so much. They're giving us amazing content, nice little sneak peeks behind the scene. Really fantastic people, it seems like. Rafe Judkins is a traveler. Holy crap, has he moved around and seen a lot of the world. And that actually, with how the Wheel of Time is, makes me very excited to see what he will bring in. Because, the Wheel of Time, heavily Eastern influenced, and he seems to be spending a lot of times just traveling the world. And I'm hoping he can bring that kind of worldly influence into Robert Jordan's vision. Because I actually don't know how well traveled Robert Jordan was outside of his service in Vietnam, which, that's not exactly a vacation. Moving on, so I'll put the links to their Twitter accounts down in the description. Check them out. They're wonderful people. It really seems like they have a lot of heart for the series. I'm sure most of you already follow them. Like, come on, we're WoT Talk nerds. We're Wheel of Time nerds. I'm sure a lot of you are here. But we're going to go ahead, and actually this is a fairly spoiler-free question. So inadvertently, this is going to be a spoiler-free-ish. I'm not giving you a 100% promise, but there's not like specific spoilers much in the comment section here. WoT Talk. So I hope you guys can enjoy that. And the question from last week was, what was your favorite aspect of the series? And my comment was up late. I apologize about that. I am human, and I fell asleep, I believe. I don't know, it was like 3 weeks ago. I don't remember why exactly I was late, but I was late. And of course, the first response was from Matthew Stormbless, killing it, always in the WoT Talk. How's it going, Matthew? I hope you're doing well. I hope school's going well for you and all that. His response was, the Wheel of Time is like a giant mountain. You look up at it and think, what must it be like up there? So you start to climb it. It's a little slow at first, but your heart is starting to beat faster. About halfway through, you almost think of turning back. What could possibly be worth this great climb? Yet you continue onward. You reach the top, and a grin splits your face. The view is amazing! Instead of going back the way you came, you decide to go down the other side. While running, it's so fast and exhilarating, and you barely notice the trees you pass by. Once you reach the bottom, your heart starts to calm down, and you think, that was worth it. Wheel of Time is essentially one big climax that starts with the wheel of time turns. From that point, it only builds more and more until the last book. I still hold that the Wheel of Time is my favorite book and my favorite series. Well, with the last name Stormblessed, I'm gonna maybe call BS, But no, I'm kidding. That's a really nice little poetic way to put it. Your metaphor is not the clearest, but in spirit, it captures the series very well, I think. And well done. I don't think anyone's gonna be able to top that one right there. That was a good. I'd hate to follow that up. Okay, Jacob Licklitter. Let's see what you bring in here. The sheer amount of three-dimensional characters who all interact and cause problems and solutions, filling 14 books. That was actually a great follow-up. I really like that because it's really true. The characterization and the fact that everyone has depth to them. And that's why so many characters are so polarizing. You captured one of the most often favorite yet also misunderstood aspects of the series. People don't understand that the reason characters like Nynaeve or Egwene are polarizing is because they are people. They feel like someone who has depth, and you disagree with them. They don't just feel like the good guy, the bad guy. You always agree with them. Quote. You always disagree with them. They're people who make mistakes, they have flaws, and they're interesting. Sorry for my King Killer fans that I'm making angry. From S. Hollis, my favorite aspect of the series is the contrariness of the series. While there is a lot of black and white, this is a story of the shadow versus the light after all. There is a hell of a lot of gray and things that aren't as they should be. What I mean by this is that things like the Aes Sedai, we learn they cannot lie, and yet told we cannot trust them. The White Cloaks are an organization dedicated to defeat the shadow, yet for much of the series, we see them as the villains. There are fractions of good guys that work against the hero, while villains from the Shadow's faction are often given him aid. Even the prophecy, Rand will save the world, and in doing so, destroy it. This is something that's quite new. Imagine Harry Potter, if the prophecies included a line saying he would bring an end to the wizarding world. Actually, you just said into wizards, but I think, I don't know, I had a mount edit there, I apologize. But that's really great, and I think true. It's easy to write off Wheel of Time as a just good versus bad, a light and dark, which I highly disagree with. It's a much more nuanced evolution on Tolkien's view of the light and dark. And don't take that as me saying Tolkien's view is shallow. There's a lot of nuance to what's Tolkien's light that is actually kind of bad, how magic is dying. There's a lot of nuance there, but I think Robert Jordan took it to a next level, another evolution that's not necessarily above, but a very interesting offshoot that in execution was just as nuanced. Now we have one from Eric Shepard. I think I'm saying that right, because it's spelled, my dyslexia killed me there. We're moving on. How easily accessible it is to all, despite the book count. Okay. I'm gonna hear you out here. Regardless of reading level, well written, but not over readers' heads. Identity. It has something to entice all sorts of readers. It brought fantasy to me at a young age, and as a result, it is easily my favorite genre now. I started in my early teens, and it made reading fun and exciting for the first time. Keep up the great post. Can't wait for the next one. Oh, and you thanked me for calling you Commander Shepard last time. Yeah, I'm sure all your students do that. It's going to be something that I'm assuming for the next 5 to 10 years. In 10 years, that'll die out, because it seems Mass Effect killed itself pretty handily with that last video game entry. But I think in 10 years, you'll no longer be hearing that, but I'll still be hearing all kinds of green jokes, so I'm in the boat with you for those next few struggles. That was weird. Moving on, Johan Sigurdsson. Oh man, I hope that's a D. Is that a D? You got an accent over it. Is it just a font thing? I don't know, Johan. I'm gonna just go by your first name here. I'm sorry. We've talked before. You are one of my patrons, I believe. I hope you're doing well in school. I'm doing pretty great, Daniel. I've wished you... I need to keep track of these conversations. I have like 9 conversations going with Wheel of WoT Talk people, and I need to start writing them down or something, because it's embarrassing that I say, I hope you're doing well to people, and in their response, they're like, I'm doing great. So I'm going to end the conversation here, Johan. We'll talk on the Patreon talk. All right. I know I butchered the last part pretty hard. I'm sorry about that. This is really a hard one. My favorite aspect of the Wheel of Time has to be the world magic system. I'm a sucker for expansive world building and a solid, hard magic system. Yeah, me too. I wish I was more open to soft magic systems. You hear that siren? A good editor would edit it out. I'm not a good editor. I wish I had more love of soft magic systems, but I really don't. There's just something about them that always just feel like, okay, well, whatever problem the hero has, they'll just slip out. And a hard magic system can help build your world, and the Wheel of Time, I think, is the best example of a magic system helping build a world that has ever been done. And yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Soft magic systems, I can't get behind them. Maybe you can. Maybe you're saying you like hard more, and I'm reading too much into it. But I'd actually like a follow up on that. If you don't like them, or you just massively prefer hard. Um, Moving on to actually finishing your comment. Promise I won't be too sidetracked from here on out. The way that I can read how a certain person butchers words, and I'll know instantly that's my favorite smuggler. Or it can read a description of someone's clothing, hairstyle, or something like that, and I'll have a good idea of where they're from. The cultures all feel real and actualized, instead of simply being there to complete the wallpaper of the writer's railroad story. That I think puts it well above many other fantasy series. I completely agree with you there. There's depth and nuance to every culture, and as I've said before, and I will say again many times, the Wheel of Time's cultures, there's a problem in a lot of fantasy books where a character's from a culture, therefore there's one aspect to them, and then as you get to know the character, that kind of culture fades into the background, and it doesn't really become a significant part of who they are. Culture is a significant a part of every character. Even Andorans, they have significant aspects to them that are unique to Andorans that are not just one or two things. The prime example being the Aiel, of course, or the Shan-Chan, arguably just as good an example of that. Moving on to Stubble McShave. There are so many things. Agreed, that's why I thought it'd be a good question. I will pick two aspects that have some loose connections between them. The twisting of tropes. Jordan twisted many of the old fantasy tropes so that you wouldn't recognize them. Okay, I will mention the shadow in the stone as an example. The sword in the stone, an example. Jordan had our hero pull a magic sword from a stone that proclaimed him the chosen one. Of course, in this case, the stone was a huge fortress called the Stone. I mean, yeah, I don't think many people, it's not like twisted to the point where people like don't recognize the trope though. But I don't think you're saying that. I think we're in agreement. It's just kind of a nice, deeper building upon what's already been done before. The circular history, specifically the fact that circular history as opposed to our linear history. This resulted in the people and events from our time in the source of half-remembered myths in the Third Age, and the events in the Third Age as source for some of the myths and legends, some of our myths and legends. Here are some examples: the Arthurian saga, the references to Slavic, Celtic, and northern myths as others. Yep, the three Telviran have clear connections to our myths. Yep, that's always been we've delved into that before. I'm going to go ahead and skim over some of your comment here just for, I have the largest walls of text by far to get through on this question, so I'm actually going to fully admit that I'm not going to read everything, and there's going to be some skimming. Otherwise, this would legitimately be a 3-hour WoT talk, and I do owe you 2 episodes, which means I should do a 3-hour one here. But I'm sorry, that's not happening. My throat is usually dead by the end of one, as is. So moving on, Jessica Haley. I love the amount of characters and depth each character gets, even minor ones. Also the amount of gray areas characters dip into throughout the series. The scope of the series as a whole is wonderfully handled. Yeah, that echoes the last comment as well. It's huge, and yes, that is difficult to get through at times, but it's incredibly accessible for its size. I almost just said something else that would have made that very weird phrasing, but moving on. With some series, when scope gets out there, you miss out on some points of view. Jordan gives you as much perspective coverage of what's going on with everyone and doesn't use a whole lot of retelling of events. I will say there is some repetition issues with Jordan that upon rereads become very apparent, but I think in the first read through help a lot with the sheer scope of everything that's happening. So I agree and disagree. I don't think it's bad that it's there, but it does hurt the rereadability in some ways when you're reading for the 8th time how specific things work. It's necessary, but it can be annoying. Oh my gosh, Daniel just criticized Wheel of Time. Jordan has that balance between number of points of view and coverage that to me is as close to perfect as you can get. Interesting. I also thank you for not calling it perfect. I do that and I'm trying to stop. People should not call things perfect. They should say it's close to perfect because perfection is unattainable. That's a weird other side philosophical thing. Husband progress update. Oh, I'm interested. Let's see. We started Either World last week. As of 12/11, we are with the group just before leaving the Two Rivers. I think he's starting to like it now, and that stuff is happening. Having to remind and explain some things to him as we go, but I don't mind. Hopefully I can get him hooked pretty soon. If he's not hooked by the end of the Eye of the World, there should be marital problems. No, I'm kidding. Best wishes for the holidays. Stay safe and enjoy. Thank you for all your great content. Thank you for the great comment. And I'm sorry for making a bad marriage joke. I know some people don't have senses of humor about that. I have a darker sense of humor that I often let onto on my channel because I know it doesn't vibe with a lot of people. But hopefully you didn't find it horrible. All right, Tracy. What do you got, Tracy Bailey? Thank you again for your charitable donation to Elliot Brooks' charity earlier. That was fantastic. And because of you, I am now definitely going to be picking up Dark Tower very, very soon. Go check Goodreads for an update. Hi, Daniel. Hope you're doing well and surviving the holiday season unscathed. I did. No scathing at all because I got better from my illnesses by the holidays. And how were your holidays? Let me know. So that's a brutal question, and I'm sorry, but it's impossible to pick a single element. I'll aim for brevity. All right, let's get through it here. First wall of text. On a broad scale, I'm blown away by the incredible tapestry that Jordan wove. He takes the analogy of threads in the pattern to a tangible level with the utilization and development of almost every minor character to Maine's encounter. There may arguably be a small handful of gratuitous characters, which is saying a lot considering the volume. That's a fair criticism. That's fair. Next is the world building. The magic system and history alone are remarkable in their detail and the use in the plot as opposed to the, this happened one time. I won't expand on world building as a whole further as it's been outlined enough elsewhere, but it's breathtaking and captivating. Agree. As a subset to the world building is the development of the societies. I love the societies. She put periods after each word, so I had to do that. Each nation, people, power group is richly defined, flushed out, and completed with a flourish that the plot seems to have come as a natural explanation progression as opposed to the usual feel of the other way around. There are some amazing worlds out there, but I have yet to read one that has as broad a scope of the whole world so well defined. Lots of authors have written masterful savior stories, good versus evil, amazing characters, etc., but no one has built another world to rival Randland. Now here's the thing. I'm gonna agree and disagree in this simultaneously. I agree but I will say there are other worlds that are as massive. Malazan, for example, is as massive, but it's not as well written and it's not as approachable. It's great, don't get me wrong. I like Malazan, but even the most diehard Malazan fans will admit it is not approachable. It is difficult. I've even said in my reviews, I recommend people getting into that series start taking notes, even if you're not trying to review it or something. You need to have a notepad to keep track of it. Robert Jordan's execution of something so massive is what's most admirable about his world building to me. It's truly astounding that you can get 11 books into this and you look back and you're like, wow, I've never really struggled here. I think one of the smartest choices he made was keeping the number of nations limited and not focusing unnecessarily on some things that didn't need focusing. I think a lot of fantasy authors make a mistake where they feel like, I need to flesh out, for example, if he had spent as much time fleshing out Mayen as he did Andor, what would have been the point of that? Now, if you want the information about Mayan is there, but he knew it didn't need to be in the prominent forefront. A lot of fantasy authors make the mistake of flushing out every nation, flushing out every level of society, and it's like, we don't need that. I'm sorry. We need to know more about Andorran high class than we do about Andorran low class in the cities, for example, because they don't take the spotlight in the story. The nobles do. You know what I mean? That's just a side tangent. Moving on. Thank you, Tracy. Fantastic comment. And now we have Nesterior. Interesting name. My favorite aspect? There are two. Cop out that I am. Okay, well, we'll go with two. It's okay. I'm not mad. The fact that so many can be summed up as communication is key, but seriously, people talk. So many unnecessarily conflicts happen because things are not communicated properly. And then there is that no conflict was truly unnecessary. It's easy to forget that with a story of this scope, but everything had to happen this way to lead us to the exact end we ended up getting. Some things were too long. Parrot looking for Fael, cough. Others a bit weird. I was screaming at Zenran, telling Egwene about the breaking of the seals because no explanation whatsoever. Agreed. A few that were hilarious. The dances of G.E.T.O. between Aviendha and Rand always had me laughing with every new thing. Did Matt ever get that thanks from Elaine, by the way? But looking back, there were so many small things that brought about an avalanche later on, and without them, no one could have reached the point they did. Rand being slapped by the Borderland leaders could have only went well if everything happened too much the same effect to that point. It's just such an amazing build all around. So my favorite aspect can be said to be the storytelling as a whole. No, I think storytelling as a whole, that's a bit of a cop out. I will say I'm gonna swoop in here and edit what you said. Hate me. I'm gonna say your favorite thing here is the handling of conflicts, because what you're describing is how humans have conflict. Like, I cannot tell you how many times in college friends of mine would be having an issue, and it's like, this whole thing is derived because someone didn't explain themselves well. So many people's relationship troubles are become a lack of perspective. I think you're realizing the realism and you're enjoying it. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. I would like a response. Let me know, Nesterior, what you think. Now we have one from Edward Agui. Daniel, this is a hard question. I know it is. I'm trying to challenge you guys. I'm trying to make you step your game up as I, step mine sideways. There is so many aspects of this series that are just awesome. But I would have to say that my favorite aspect is how easy it is to escape into. The main characters are all super relatable, except maybe when Rand gets super dark and crazy. Are you saying you've never been dark and crazy? Okay. Sorry about that. Jordan even does a fantastic job describing what it feels like to channel, to the point that it almost makes you feel like you could do it yourself if you were in the Wheel of Time too. Isn't it hard to accept the fact that statistically, if you were dropped into the Wheel of Time, you couldn't channel? Doesn't that suck? If all of us who listen, all 1,200 people who listened to the last episode were taken and dropped into the world of the Wheel of Time, 5 of us could maybe channel, if that, at best. Anyway, by the way, my last name is pronounced like the letters A-G. Oh, AG. Okay. Everyone else seems to give you a hard time about it, so I figured I would correct you as well. I admit that I find it entertaining. I'm going to call you a Gee, and you will be a Gee from now on. Cameron Bradley. The awesome world it is set in. The great characters, the mystery. Okay, no, Cameron. You can't just start bullet pointing things. I'm not allowing that. Moving on. I said one. I'm cracking down, people. Y'all putting too much. I'm cracking down right now, especially because I need to go through literally 2 to 3 times as much as I've had to go to before. From Ipa, I will never skip an Ipa comment, ever. Thanks for the name drop. I love you too. Just as a heterosexual man can love another heterosexual man who has never seen in real life. Bro, I got so much bro love, you don't even know. Just go watch the Scrubs Guy Love song. That has not aged well. First, I thought it would be the magic, especially Sayadine. When I was young, I started Wheel of Time. I had never thought of or heard of magic system that would actually make it user weaker. So I need to jump back real quick. So I had a weird moment while I was talking about Ipa's comment last week. This is, I swear to God, what happened. my neighbor was my apartment's on the ground floor. Sorry for the side tangent, and my window was open, and this person was walking their dog, and literally like my thoughts about like I want to own that dog. That dog is adorable. Started coming out of my mouth. So I apologize for the weirdness there, but it was a goddamn adorable like Shiba Inu Mastiff mix or something. It was big and fluffy, and I loved it. I miss having a dog. Anyway, moving on. Now that's your comment. But I think it still has to be the characters. I usually don't care about the characters and stories that much. What? But the events they go through. In the Wheel of Time, there is a handful of characters I know so well, I can't but feel for them. 5 people from Emmons Field throughout the story, but there is some scenes that really make me warm inside for other characters. Swan being healed of Stilling, Gawain meeting Morghese at Merilor, for example. I just said Mellilore, for example. It's phenomenal how well the main cast is built up. There is no obvious jumps, as Rand turns from a sheep herder to a demigod, and while he is the best example, they are all done so well. Yeah, that is, that's good, that's true. And that's the thing, a lot of people accuse Rand of having jumps in power. I agree and disagree. As I mentioned in my review of The Dragon Reborn, which you've not watched, go watch it. He doesn't jump in power in a sense where he's now a master of channeling. He gets access to this well and becomes this glass cannon in every sense of the word, where he's very killable, but he just has this crazy uncontrollable output that he just throws around. And no matter how good of a Forsaken you are, if some untrained kid who has massive powers throwing around just unleashed Sayadine, an unpredictable, insane opponent is still dangerous. So, well, yes, he is at a disadvantage. He is still dangerous to everybody, which Robert Jordan sets up very well. He's a nuclear bomb walking. Anyway, moving on to your comment. If you can make me care, you are writing a real good story. Brandon Sanderson is the one who has gotten closest to this level, but he isn't there yet with his own works. Also, I will give shout-outs to world building and all that as well. It's phenomenal. True. I'm curious how much Brandon Sanderson you've read. Let me know in the comments down below, because I'm curious, because I find his character work in Stormlight Archive honestly on par with the early books of Wheel of Time. Granted, I wouldn't say it's matched Wheel of Time yet, obviously, because Wheel of Time has 14 books to go through. Well, Stormlight Archive still has to go through a lot to get there. But all I'm saying is I see the potential in Stormlight Archive to eventually match, and as it currently is pacing, I think it's on par to where the Wheel of Time was pacing 3 books in. Just an opinion. Okay, we have a comment from Demon Dread, everybody. We have a comment from Demon Dread. You guys, paragraph breaks would be helpful. Just saying, like, unnecessary. This isn't criticizing, like, saying your grammar's bad or anything. It just makes it easier to have, like, legitimately unnecessary breaks. Because even if it is just actually one paragraph, it's hard to read the way YouTube's formatted for me. So if you just throw in, like, 2-3 sentences, break, 2-3 sentences, break. It helps me a lot. I don't know if that's a dyslexia thing or if that's just an actual thing, but just saying in the future it would help. There you go. Today you learned. Moving on. I know it's not necessarily unique for the Wheel of Time, but my favorite aspect is how characters come and go throughout the series. An important character can disappear for several books and almost be forgotten until she gets reintroduced. It's kind of ironic having this come from Demon Dread. Some characters can be mentioned early in the series, which creates some kind of mysticism around them before they are introduced later. It gives the reader the feeling of, oh yes, I remember that guy/woman, or I remember that name being mentioned earlier on. I read that funny. Moving on. It's not the most complex aspect, but I feel it's perfectly executed in the Wheel of Time. I personally used 3.5 years completing the series due to studies and other reading commitments. Therefore, I often met characters I hadn't met in over 3 years, which I feel is a long time. Good example of characters who come and go are Huron, Moraine, Elias, Tam, Uno, Padanfane, and Valen Luca. I also have to mention my boy Demon Dread. Not going to read the rest of that because it's in detail spoiler. And I think I accidentally just dropped in a detail spoiler, so I will be putting a spoiler warning up on the screen before I read that comment. Reminder for me to do that. All right. Mealy Cleaver. Spoiler warning. Well, let's just keep that spoiler warning till the end of the video and say, from this point on out, if you have not finished the series, I would stop listening. 3, 2, 1. You should have clicked off by now. It turns out Rand's a polar bear. No. Okay, actually, spoiler warning. Even though it's such a small part of the series, I love the parts where you genuinely feel some fear, and the book feels more like a horror thriller than fantasy. For example, the books with Balsamon stalking the Rahad like a storming fire demon, or the Aelfin and Eelfin in the Tower of Genjai. Especially the sequence in the town of Hinderstep where everybody goes crazy in the night is amazing. These sequences are among my favorite, and such little horrorish parts make the Wheel of Time story even more awesome in my opinion. All the best from the Netherlands. Oh, you're from the Netherlands. I love it. Yeah, I agree. You didn't mention the Forsaken torture scenes, and those as well are some of, to me, the most absolutely terrifying. How casual and callous they are. There's no feelings of guilt. There's no nothing. I don't know. Okay, so moving on, we have one from Daniel, but with an accent mark over the I, so I don't know how to say that. Okay, moving on to your comment. My favorite aspect of the underlying tension that remains throughout the series due to Robert Jordan's amazing world building. I'm rereading The Eye of the World for the 8th time for something like that, and it's just amazing how Robert Jordan makes you feel the fear of the Two Rivers people. I especially like the part in the Black Tower in the last 3 books, the tension with the 13 Myrddraal, that you are slowly turning the Black Tower to the dark side. The dark side. Oh, so eerie. Yeah, that's tough. Speaking of comments that work well next to each other, another great horrific moment that I hope in the TV show feels awful. I want to feel nauseous watching it happen, because that's what it should make you feel. You're watching something that should make you feel utterly terrible, you know? I don't know. That's me. That's just me. Okay, guys, so we have the longest comment in the history of WoT Talk. And it's from the amazing, wonderful I'm going to get through this one. But here's the thing. I'm skipping quite a few so I can do it. And it's just because she's such an avid, amazing listener. You got to give her props. Honestly, top tier WoT Talk fan. And if you don't want your comments skipped, be an active member. That's all I got to say. And don't worry. I do see some more people in here who are active members, and those are the people whose comments will be preferred at this point. And I'm just trying to save my voice because I have things I got to do today, and I can't be talking like this the whole time. So I apologize. I'm going to get into this incredible comment left, though. And I feel bad because like the last couple that has put so much work into, I've skipped. So I can't skip this one because it looks incredible, and it's well broken up, easy to read, and I'm spending more time talking about it than I am reading it. So here we go. My favorite aspect of the series is the female characters, and always has been. Spoilery wall of text, and by God, this is a wall of text. But we're getting through it. We have had numerous examples of great male characters in literature for as long as we have had literature. Great heroes, great villains, movers and shakers, and personalities galore. But for the most part, women have been relegated to supporting roles. That is just statistically true. Yeah, it's not 100%, but I would go as far as to say 80%. Yeah, you are absolutely right. A love interest, a plot point, a reward for the protagonist, or an obstacle he must overcome. The male characters drive the story. The women are passengers. We have some notable exceptions, but they are just that, notable, because they're exceptions. But the Wheel of Time takes that paradigm and turns it on its head. We are about 1/20th of the way through the comment. Let's get into it. From the very beginning, we have women being the most active and assertive characters in the story. Moraine finds the boys and convinces them to leave Mansfield. Moraine, the scary wizard lady who is a member of the vastly powerful Society of Scary Wizard Ladies. The big, tough dude beside her is a master swordsman, a brilliant tactician, and a freaking king. But Lan follows Moraine and defers to her completely. And soon, Rand, Perrin, and Matt follow Moraine too. They are the passengers, and she is very much in the driver's seat. Then Egwene invites herself along because she wants to be just like Moraine, because Egwene is awesome and is the first one to recognize that Moraine is a worthy role model. Moraine wasn't expecting this, didn't ask Egwene to come along, and hadn't planned for this, but she agrees to let Egwene come, and that decision probably saved the world, as did 1,000 other decisions Moraine makes in the early books. To say that Egwene's path is pivotal to the outcome in the entire story is an understatement. I get what you're saying there, but it's just like that is the matching statement. It's pivotal. It is key. It is... I get good use of hyperbole. But I don't know why I felt the need to call that out. I'm a jerk. That's why. Moving on. Then Nynaeve follows the group through the Trolloc-infested wilderness, successfully tracking down a legendary warder who is trying to cover their trail. Nynaeve traveled alone through the same dangers that a group led by an Aes Sedai and a warder navigated with extreme difficulty. No one asked her to, and she didn't ask for permission or forgiveness. And Nynaeve loses the can-do... Sorry, and Nynaeve loses this can-do, take-charge spirit. What? Oh, and Nynaeve never loses this can-do, take-charge spirit, and Nynaeve and Moraine are there at the very end, standing with Rand against the Dark One. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? All right. And these women have flaws. Yes, they're not Mary Sue's, which is great. Moraine is cold, enigmatic, and secretive. Also overly logical, I will add to that. So much so that the very people she is trying to help question her motives. Egwene is impatient, eager, and not terribly concerned about being liked. Nynaeve is truculent and downright abusive, with a lot of examined attitudes and prejudices, unexamined attitudes and prejudices, and these are our heroines. They're the forefront. That we spend more time with them than we do with a lot of the guys, or all of the guys. I think the character we spend the most time with is Rand. And I think Matt, Perrin, Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine kind of intermingle very well past that. We're about halfway through the comment so far. It's one of my favorite comments of all time. And now we're moving on. But wait, there's more. Our female villains are just as impressive. I don't want to leave out Elida, who is an amazing antagonist. Yes, she is. I'd put her on the same level as Dolores Umbridge in terms of getting you to hate her, but also being a believable, we all know that kind of person in the real world type. Back to your comment. Sorry, I had to interject that. Who is an amazing antagonist, but I really want to focus on the Forsaken. Of the 13 Forsaken, only 5 are women, and those 5 are as much more impressive than any 5 of the men. Lanfear and Moghedien are out in front, actively engaging with the key planners, getting to know their strengths and weaknesses, and testing their limits. They were also actively searching for objects or artifacts to help them achieve victory for the Shadow, while Ravine, Demandred, Samai, and Balal were setting themselves up as petty despots in various parts of the world. Lanfear and Moghedien were identifying who was important in this new age, not building armies of followers. Ultimately, I found both Lanfear and Moghedien disappointing for various reasons, but that doesn't detract from the incredible risks they were taking by being so close to the important players. We're almost there, and it's beautiful. Then we have arguably the 2 most competent and effective Forsaken, Semirhage and Masana. Each of these women identify the most powerful and dangerous societies in the world and infiltrate and manipulate them masterfully from within. While Demandred was playing God, King, and Shara, obviously just doing an ego trip there, that's my own little comment I'm adding in, Semirhage was turning the Shan-Chan into an instrument of chaos. Never mind that this is a society that leashes women like her and turn them into weapons. Similarly, Masana ensconces herself in the White Tower, one of the most dangerous places for women who can channel outside of the Shan-Chan. Ultimately, Both Semirog and Masana were defeated by circumstances they could not have foreseen or planned against, rather than hoist by their own petard like Lanfura Mulgideon. Great use of that saying right there. Then we have Grendel, the most hypersexualized character in the books, with her revealing streath gowns, I don't know that word, and her courtier of beautiful thralls. Courtier, damn it, dyslexia is a dick. Thralls. Grendel is very clever and calculating, and is willing to appear foolish and weak if it helps others underestimate her. This is a woman who doesn't actually care about her appearance or any of the trappings of carnal pleasures she surrounds herself with. No one in this world actually knows Grendel at all, but they all think they do. She plays the long game, and she isn't necessarily playing the game everyone else is playing. She doesn't care about the Dark One's plans, defeating the Dragon Reborn, or any of that. She just wants to be left alone and does as little as possible to help Team Evil. The Dragon Reborn was fooled by Grendel, and more than one Forsaken fatally underestimated her. She is one of the most entertaining antagonists of the entire series. Interesting take on Grendel. I didn't pick up on everything you were saying there, but most of it I did. There's a couple things I might go as far as say I disagree with, but fascinating. Very good. I love that. That was fantastic. Now we have another great comment by Wiley Roja. OMG, the symbolism. This is another small wall of text. I'm going to go for your too lazy didn't read, because I like that you provided that, and I appreciate it. The symbolism of Wheel of Time serves the purpose of enriching the idea that Randland is our far distant future or distant path. Not or, and. You got to remember it's an and, not an or. Since it only creates its own lore, but makes use of real-life philosophy throughout real-life philosophy, thought currents, and religion to create the mind-boggling sensation that everything is connected and that something is always added from the previous age after the turning of the Wheel of Time. Isn't that fascinating? And then he goes into a lot of really good examinations of the kind of myths and the Judeo-Christian stuff. You just go to the read this. Everyone's comment here was phenomenal. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys actually go back through and reread the stuff, but I recommend you do, because it's fantastic. We have one from Ahmed Farhan. My favorite aspect of the series is undoubtedly the dialogue, and I like this comment because it's different than a lot of other people are saying. The dialogue in general is fantastic. Every line advances the plot in believable ways. Rarely does it feel as if characters are talking but nothing is happening. A lot of my favorite scenes are just characters talking. More specifically, I love the way dialogue builds so much tension in key moments. Yes, oh my god, yes. And then a character says something cool with such gravity that you get goosebumps and think, shit just got real. I'll give examples, but your entire video on best quotes has already done that. Go check out that video if you haven't already. It's one of the WoT Talks. Great comment. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now we have a few more short ones, and then really just a lot of these are great. So I'm going to skip over some of the short ones because I feel bad skipping the long ones that people put so much effort into. And then my voice is honestly kind of going a little bit already, but we're going to go ahead and jump on into Laura. Laura Fitzgerald for having a different comment. You know, her comment starts off with, everyone's hot. I love that. Should I just leave your comment there, Laura? Should I just leave it there? No. She says I'm kidding. My favorite aspect of the series and how it shows that, even with the literal apocalypse looming over them, people will still find times to laugh and be kind to one another. The story doesn't get entirely wrapped up in the, ooh, it's the end of the world. Individuals still have their own personal battles to fight, which is, I think, exactly how the actual apocalypse would go. There's a scene at the start of The Shadow Rising where Rand is taking to the Let me restart that there. There's a scene at the start of The Shadow Rising where Rand is taken to the Terran Lords, and in between the sentences, you can see that he's wondering what about his fat crush on Elaine. Oh yeah, it's great writing, but that's what people do in real life, all across history. You have to juggle big responsibilities and have crushes on total babes. Not to get mushy, but I think it speaks to a resilience of the spirit that people still cling to their personhood, their traditions, tastes, hissy fits, terrible jokes, etc., even when the world is ending. Robert Jordan gets people. This is a weird thing, but I'm going to use your comment to say on this. There will be a time in the future where humanity dies. right? I know this just took a left turn. Follow me. And this comment made me think of that. I really hope the last thing, the last real human says is a joke. I want humanity to go out with a laugh. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe that's just the comedian, the kid who was raised on Charlie Chaplin and, George Carlin and all that. But, I want to go out with a good, clever something. I hope that's how we go out. Whether it's apocalypse or we're ascending to something else, I hope that's how we go out. Anyway, from Dragon Yordanov, from the best aspect of the Wheel of Time is the return on investment you get from it. And I like this comment because, again, it's kind of different. It's just like getting a university degree. All right. Not everyone has one, firstly. Not everyone would invest so much time and effort, 14 books. And secondly, not everyone will endure it till the end. Then, the more you put into it, read, reread, discuss with your friend and community, as we all do, the better grade you get for your Wheel of Time degree. And the more you discover about it, the more you realize how deep the subject is and how much more there is to it. Without you even being aware or conscious about it, no two people who read it will have the same understanding of it. Basically, the only difference versus university degree is that after finishing A Memory of Light, you most likely do not put on a funny square hat and do not get a printed diploma on the wall that never looked at it again. Did you just come up with a great idea for my channel where people, after they prove to me they finish A Memory of Light, I send them a diploma? Do we need to do that? I'm going to get back to y'all on that. Now we have another comment coming in here from Kali Dar. I love how it shows us the similarities as well as the hypocritical views of a great deal of our characters. The Children of the Light being a very obvious metaphor. It's a great example of that. Sorry, not metaphor. Oh, that's the wrong word, not metaphor. Representation, right? I don't know. Equivalence? There's a word. Someone say it. Even though a lot of them have fully fleshed out worldviews and philosophies, there are always aspects or moments where they wouldn't go along with their own way of living, especially when it comes to other people. My favorite example is how Land usually gives Rand shite. I don't know. I didn't even censor it. That was just me saying the word in a different pronunciation, for taking so much responsibility on his shoulders and making his life hard by letting the deaths of his followers get to him. Yet at the same time, his main conflict is letting himself be king, and he truly is, and letting people follow and die in his name. Yeah, it's hypocrisy. Another is Cadsuane's hypocrisy when it comes to showing respect and the way she treats people, as shown by Tam when he confronted her. Rand's own hypocrisy and contradictions, of course, is something that is very central in the series, such as his views on women, his negative views on Aes Sedai, and the way he treats the most well-meaning of nobles. These little and large contradictions and personality give the characters so much more life and depth, since it makes so much more real. Yeah, I agree. It's a wonderful aspect of the series, and I'm going to go ahead and skip over a few more of the short ones here. I'm sorry, short answer people. I know you're contributing just as well, and I love you too. It's just that high effort deserves reward is the logic. I hope you guys understand. So now we have one here from Ryan Reeder. I don't know if you've commented before, but I like your name. I love alliteration. When you're done reading it, you get to say that you've read a 17,000-page series. Longer than the Bible, all of Shakespeare, all of Tolkien, all of Harry Potter, and War and Peace combined? That's not true. Kind of joking answer, kind of not. I don't think that's actually true. That's not true. No ways. No, that's not true. I kind of agree with Matthew Stormbless's metaphor at the beginning of these comments. I love interaction in the comments. But I'm going to get to your actual answer here. But ultimately, the series had... Oh, sorry. To be honest, there were some parts that were hard. The slog, books 7 and 9, didn't really leave me with a sense of fulfillment, but of a feeling of why am I spending so much time reading these books when there are so many others that I could and should be doing. It might be more rewarding on rereads to just hang out and spend some time in a world or find details to nerd out on. dude, that's exactly why the reread is amazing. But I had issues for me on the first time. But ultimately, the series had value. Its world building, character development, and deep themes and life lessons weren't things I appreciated. It shares many elements with other heroes' journey stories like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, but adds many things that are completely original. To pick one particular thing I liked in the series, the visions of Rand and Aviendha and Roydion. Though the way those expanded the series, not just in space but in time, throughout generations, past and future. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that beautiful? All right, moving on. I'm going to skip down here to the kind of towards the... Oh, we're actually almost towards the end here. I kind of skipped too much, maybe. Well, no, we're approaching an hour quick. So, all right, this is from Jarrock 1974. Hi, Daniel. I have to go with two things. Sorry, I can't limit just one. Two is not one, guys. One is one. Okay, it's fine. It's whatever. One, the foreshadowing. Robert Jordan is an absolute king of foreshadowing. I have never read another author who can touch the level of depth of foreshadowing Jordan brings. And it's not too obvious, which I love. I've read the series at least 8 times, and I'm still finding new things on every reread. Min mentions a bloody eye on a scale, and it plays out when he finally saves Moraine. Easter eggs and foreshadowing are the gift that keeps on giving. Also, the amount of planning Jordan had to put in his works. He makes seemingly random comments in the first book that don't pay off at times till 13 or 14 books later. That is incredible. And you have to remember that might not 100% be Robert. That could also be Brandon doing his due diligence, but I know what you mean and I completely agree. Second, and I am going to go with your second. I am going to read your second because I'm a generous god. No, I'm sorry. That was weird. Second, how incredibly human the characters are. They're not perfect. They make assumptions. They make poor decisions. Even when they have grown as characters into mature adults who understand their responsibilities. You have commented in multiple videos how you dislike Rand and Egwene's fighting towards the end of the series. I find this incredibly human. Despite how much both characters have grown, they still see each other as childhood friend. This leads them both to feel they can walk over the other as they have grown so much both have grown. But they are the last to see it in the other. To Rand, Egwene is the girl he's a little in love with who tries to be too serious. Rand is the wool-headed sheep herder to Egwene. They can't see how much the other has grown, and in Egwene's case, she really has no idea just how sane Rand is or not. This is really surprising that when Rand came in and said, okay, first things first, I'm going to break the seals, that her first reaction wasn't, that sounds great, Rand. Another comment, okay, let me respond to that real quick, because obviously that wouldn't have been her response. But I think with the gravity of the situation and with the obvious way Rand phrases it, how it sounds like a horrible idea, anyone with even a modicum of intelligence would say, I'm going to do this because, and explain themselves. As soon as Egwene started pushing back, Rand should have been like, oh, wait, no, you're my friend. I know you don't serve the Shadow. Let's just talk for a second. This is why I'm doing it. And then Egwene could go, that makes sense. Cool. Or no. I would be okay with the conflict still even being there if they had explained themselves and still disagreed. It's just the lack of them explaining themselves that felt very out of place and very out of character. Because that's one thing people do in Wheel of Time, and I actually appreciate. People explain themselves when it's necessary, and it fits. Sorry. Anyway, that's it. Just wanted to put that out there. I actually do really like... I've had my opinion changed on Egwene. I do like her as a character now. I've had my opinion changed on a lot of things as I've talked with the community more, but that final conflict will always piss me off a little bit. Sorry. That's just it, because it's not like they were pressed for time. Rand could have taken 30, 40, 2 minutes... 30, 40 seconds, 2 minutes to just say, oh, and here's why I'm doing it. Because I do my research. Anyway, sorry. Moving on. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's my interpretation of it. Another commenter on the Wheel of Time was frustrated that the characters make such poor, immature decisions early on. To me, that is part and parcel of what it makes them believable. And they're also very young. People need to remember these are teenagers when the series starts. People don't make smart decisions every time, especially when they are young. Poor communication is a reality even between sworn allies. Look at the history of the world. Sorry, look at the history of world. Wow, I'm bad at this. Look at the history of World Wars One and Two for concrete evidence of how even allies never share everything they know. This is supposed. Sorry, it is these supposed flaws that make these seems so real to me. See, if you're implying that back to the Rand Egwene thing, I'm still gonna disagree because it's not like, you know, it's not like Hitler and Stalin were best friends who hung out had a childhood together. Rand and Egwene had a childhood together and could certainly trust each other with all information. I don't know. Anyway, I'm moving on. I'm not salty about it. I'm not angry about it. It's fine. I'm moving away. All right. I think that's the last comment I'm going to read on this one, and I'm going to leave you guys. I really screwed up that last comment, though. It's a bad note to leave on, but I'm going to leave you guys with a great question. An interesting question, and I'm excited to see your responses, and I promise, right here and now, I will read every single response out on the next WoT Talk. I might regret this, but I will. I will read and respond to every single response to this question, and the question is, who would you want to date in the Wheel of Time? Yeah, we're going there. We're going to make it weird. Let's do this one next week. I'm very excited to see what the responses are to this question because I think there'll actually be quite a bit of divergence in answer and probably some good responses as well. I expect there's probably going to be some actual conversation about this one. But let me know, if you could go on a nice little dinner date with anyone in the Wheel of Time, who would you go out with? And those of you who had mentioned that you're married, don't worry. I think you'll get a free pass for this one. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.